Imagine waking up in a world shrouded in secrecy, where every glance is watched, every word measured, and your destiny has been decided before your first breath. This is the life of Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, a man whose name echoes through corridors of power and fear alike. To understand his life is to peer into a regime tightly woven with tradition, ideology, and control, a world unlike any other on Earth. Kim Jong-un was born on January 8, 1984, in Pyongyang, the capital city of North Korea. From the very start, his life was anything but ordinary. He was the youngest son of Kim Jong-il, the country's former leader, and the grandson of Kim Il-sung, the founder of the North Korean state. Growing up under the weight of a family legacy meant that from childhood, he was groomed for leadership. Education, military tradition, and political indoctrination became the pillars of his upbringing. While other children played freely in schoolyards, young Kim was introduced to a world of symbols, speeches, and strategy. His formative years were spent partially abroad, in Switzerland, where he attended school under a pseudonym to maintain secrecy. Observers suggest that this period exposed him to Western lifestyles, casual freedoms, and modern conveniences, experiences starkly contrasting with the rigid life of North Korea. However, it is believed that these years also fostered a cunning adaptability in him, a skill crucial for navigating the treacherous waters of internal politics. Those close to him noticed a child who was observant, analytical, and strangely patient for his age, traits that would later define his approach as a ruler. Returning to North Korea in the early 2000s, Kim Jong-un began his formal training for leadership in earnest. He was enrolled at the Kim Il-sung Military University, where military strategy, political theory, and statecraft became his daily regimen. Unlike typical students, Kim's lessons were not just academic. They were a direct apprenticeship in ruling a nation. From ceremonial protocol to understanding the intricate web of the Workers' Party of Korea, every lecture, every exercise, and every observation was a step toward the ultimate goal, succession. Behind the scenes, a careful political maneuvering began. Kim Jong-un was officially declared the heir apparent in the mid-2000s, following years of quiet preparation and the gradual sidelining of other potential successors. This process, though largely invisible to the outside world, involved consolidating influence within the military, the party, and the elite circles of Pyongyang. By the time his father's health began to decline in 2008, Kim Jong-un was positioned firmly as the next supreme leader, an apex of preparation that balanced both loyalty and fear among those around him. Kim Jong-un's ascent was not merely about inherited power, it was a masterclass in control and image. The young leader understood that to command a nation like North Korea, charisma must coexist with absolute authority. Public appearances were meticulously choreographed. Smiles, handshakes, and gestures became instruments of power, while military parades, missile tests, and state funerals were leveraged to project both strength and continuity. Every action sent a message. He was the rightful leader, capable, unshakable, and above all, untouchable. Even in his earliest years of leadership, Kim faced internal and external challenges. The North Korean military, the elite party cadres, and the ever-present surveillance apparatus required constant attention. Loyalty was rewarded, disobedience punished. Decisions were made in closed rooms, filtered through layers of trusted aides, and executed with precision. In the public eye, he was a young, energetic leader. Behind the scenes, he was learning the art of governance in a country where missteps were not tolerated. Despite the strict control, the world outside North Korea watched with a mixture of fascination and fear. Kim Jong-un's leadership was immediately characterized by unpredictability, missile tests, international negotiations, and sudden shifts in diplomatic tone. Analysts speculated on his strategic thinking, attempting to decode a man who ruled in absolute secrecy. Was he impulsive or calculating? Ruthless or pragmatic? Every action reinforced both his authority and the uncertainty surrounding his intentions. Life in the North Korean palace is one of paradoxes. Luxury and scarcity coexist, opulence for the leader, austerity for the masses. Kim Jong-un's days are reported to be regimented yet secretive. Meetings with top generals, planning sessions on military and economic strategy, and reviews of intelligence reports form the core of his daily life. Leisure is private, security is omnipresent, and the ever-watchful eyes of the regime ensure that loyalty is never taken for granted. It is a life of isolation wrapped in power, a constant balancing act between image, control, and the legacy of his family. By the time Kim Jong-un officially assumed power after his father's death in December 2011, the world watched with cautious anticipation. He was a young man, in his late 20s, taking control of a nation that had long been shrouded in secrecy, propaganda, and fear. Yet, he knew that inheriting power in North Korea required more than lineage. It demanded demonstration of absolute authority and strategic brilliance. From the very beginning, he set out to consolidate his rule through a combination of spectacle, intimidation, and carefully orchestrated policy moves. One of his earliest actions was to solidify loyalty within the military and political elite. This was crucial, as factions within the regime could challenge his authority if left unchecked. Over the next few years, high-ranking officials and generals, some of whom had been close to his father, were quietly removed, exiled, or, in some cases, publicly executed. The most notable of these was the execution of his uncle, Jang Song-thaek, in 2013, a shocking move that sent a clear message: dissent would not be tolerated. While brutal, these actions cemented Kim's image as a decisive and uncompromising leader, someone who would maintain control at any cost. Parallel to consolidating internal power, Kim Jong-un began to cultivate a public persona that emphasized both modernity and continuity. He appeared at factories, farms, and military installations, always in carefully staged scenarios designed to project energy, empathy, and oversight. Smiling for cameras, inspecting construction sites, and posing with soldiers and citizens, he reinforced the image of a hands-on, approachable leader while simultaneously reminding everyone that the state's hierarchy remained intact. Media portrayal in North Korea was tightly controlled. Every photograph, every article, every broadcast reinforced the narrative of his competence and vision. Internationally, Kim Jong-un quickly became a figure of fascination and anxiety. While North Korea had always been isolated, under his leadership the nation's missile program accelerated dramatically. Between 2012 and 2016, a series of ballistic missile tests and nuclear detonations demonstrated capabilities that alarmed the global community. Each test was a calculated message. North Korea would assert its sovereignty, pursue its defense ambitions, and demand recognition on the world stage. These actions brought sanctions and condemnation from the United Nations, but they also bolstered his domestic authority, portraying him as a leader who could stand firm against foreign powers. At the same time, Kim Jong-un experimented with diplomatic openings, often in ways that confounded analysts. Secretive meetings with international envoys, sporadic negotiations, and high-profile summits created a sense of unpredictability. His 2018 meetings with South Korean President Moon Jae-in and later with U.S. President Donald Trump marked historic firsts for a North Korean leader. The world saw a young, somewhat enigmatic figure walking the fine line between provocation and diplomacy. Inside North Korea, these events were framed as evidence of Kim's brilliance, the culmination of his strategic foresight in safeguarding national pride and sovereignty. While global headlines focused on nuclear talks and missile launches, life inside North Korea under Kim Jong-un was intensely regimented. He oversaw every aspect of governance, from economic policies to military exercises, while ensuring that information flow remained tightly controlled. Propaganda remained central. Textbooks, television programs, and public art celebrated his leadership and the enduring glory of the Kim dynasty. Citizens were reminded daily of the state's strength, their own duty, and the omnipresence of the supreme leader's gaze. For Kim, maintaining this narrative was as important as wielding military might. Perception, after all, was power. His personal lifestyle, though shrouded in secrecy, became a subject of global curiosity. Reports suggested an affinity for Western culture, video games, and basketball, revealing glimpses of a human side that contrasted sharply with his public persona. Yet these glimpses were carefully managed and rare. reinforcing the sense that the supreme leader existed both within and above the ordinary world. Kim's life, therefore, became a constant balancing act, projecting authority and invincibility while navigating the private complexities of a young man thrust into extraordinary power. By the middle of the 2010s, Kim Jong-un had firmly established his rule. Internally, dissent was virtually non-existent, loyalty was enforced through surveillance and patronage, and the nation's leadership structure revolved around his decisions. Externally, the world continued to oscillate between attempts at diplomacy and preparation for confrontation. His dual approach, aggressive military posturing paired with occasional diplomatic gestures, defined the modern era of North Korean leadership. It demonstrated a keen understanding that survival and influence required both fear and respect. As Kim Jong-un enters the second decade of his leadership, his life as the supreme leader of North Korea has become a complex tapestry of control, ambition, and survival. By now, he is not only the face of the state, but also the embodiment of its ideology, its fears, and its aspirations. The everyday life of Kim Jong-un is a mix of rigorous governance, public appearances, strategic planning, and a relentless focus on maintaining power within a nation that has never tolerated weakness. Domestically, Kim has pushed forward an agenda that blends economic development with military readiness. Though North Korea remains under severe international sanctions, he has attempted to modernize certain sectors of the economy, from agriculture to industry, often through highly publicized projects that showcase self-reliance, a core principle of the state. New housing developments, industrial complexes, and infrastructure projects are presented as symbols of progress, while propaganda emphasizes the leader's wisdom and dedication. Yet these achievements exist alongside continuing hardships for the population: food shortages, limited healthcare, and tight restrictions on freedom, reminding the world that life in North Korea remains starkly different from the life of its ruler. The supreme leader's approach to governance remains authoritarian and highly centralized. Decision-making is concentrated within his inner circle, composed of military officials, political elites, and family confidants. Kim's leadership style combines micromanagement with delegation to trusted aides, enabling him to monitor developments closely while ensuring that loyalty is rewarded and disloyalty punished. Surveillance and propaganda are critical tools. Citizens are constantly reminded of their duty, the supremacy of the state, and the presence of their leader's eyes. In this environment, Kim Jong-un has crafted a system where fear, respect, and control intertwine seamlessly. Internationally, Kim Jong-un's North Korea continues to be a subject of global scrutiny. Nuclear and missile programs remain at the center of his strategy, serving as both a defensive measure and a bargaining chip in diplomacy. Periodic missile tests draw immediate attention from the United Nations and world powers, ensuring that North Korea maintains leverage in global discussions despite its isolation. Yet Kim has also shown a willingness to engage selectively with other nations. High-profile meetings, whether with South Korean leaders or occasional interactions with the United States, demonstrate his understanding that strategic visibility can enhance legitimacy while reducing the risk of complete isolation. The paradox of Kim Jong-un's leadership lies in his ability to maintain strict control while projecting a calculated image to the outside world. Domestically, he is a commanding figure, the focal point of loyalty and authority. Internationally, he balances aggression with diplomacy, unpredictability with strategy. This dual approach has kept world leaders cautious, analysts speculating, and his own citizens under constant observation. It is a delicate equilibrium that requires constant attention, calculated decisions, and a clear vision of the regime's long-term survival. Personal life for Kim remains largely private, though glimpses suggest a life of privilege juxtaposed with the burdens of responsibility. Reports indicate an affinity for leisure activities such as watching basketball, enjoying films, or attending cultural events, but always within tightly controlled settings. Security is omnipresent, both in his public appearances and private routines. Every move is choreographed, every interaction carefully considered, as even minor missteps could have far-reaching consequences. In essence, Kim Jong-un lives in a world where freedom is relative, immense power, yet endless scrutiny and expectation. In recent years, Kim has also begun emphasizing legacy and succession. His leadership is not merely about the present, but about ensuring the dynasty's continuation. His public appearances with family members, participation in state ceremonies, and careful mentoring of potential successors highlight a leader acutely aware of his historical footprint. Maintaining the lineage of the Kim dynasty is central to his narrative, a continuation of a story that began with his grandfather and was expanded by his father. For Kim, history is both a guide and a tool, shaping his actions while reinforcing his authority. Despite the isolation and global criticism, Kim Jong-un has shown resilience and adaptability. He has navigated internal purges, international sanctions, and fluctuating diplomatic opportunities with a combination of ruthlessness and strategic acumen. His regime continues to evolve in response to domestic challenges and international pressures, yet the core principle remains unchanged: the consolidation of power, the survival of the state, and the perpetuation of the Kim dynasty. Through these efforts, Kim Jong-un has carved a unique path, one that intertwines personal ambition, national identity, and historical legacy in ways that few leaders can replicate. As we reflect on the life of Kim Jong-un, we see a leader shaped by inheritance, secrecy, and the demands of an unforgiving political environment. From a secluded childhood and careful grooming to his rise as supreme leader and his current command over North Korea, every phase of his life reveals the intricate dynamics of power, control, and strategy. His story is a testament to the challenges of absolute rule in the modern era, a life where authority is total, visibility is calculated, and survival requires both intellect and ruthlessness. In the world of global politics, Kim Jong-un remains an enigmatic figure, a ruler whose actions continue to shape the fate of millions, define regional stability, and captivate the world's attention.